Aloha. Welcome to Marriage on the Spot. We're your co-hosts, Kent and Elizabeth Kitagawa. And we talked about this before, and I'm sure, it's been a subject, a topic, and it's actually a very, I think, timely one now. And that has to do with building healthy borders. We talk about it, borders or boundaries within our relationships. I think that's been sort of distorted in a lot of people's minds and how they apply that healthy boundaries within a marriage, because the boundaries are not so much to control or to keep other people out, rather than to define with what we within the borders are supposed to be responsible for, and what belongs to someone else.
Okay.
So it's it's really it's giving ourselves the freedom to make choices, but also giving our partner, our spouse, or whoever it is, maybe a co-worker, could be our children, giving them the appropriate amount of space to define themselves and to grow and to make their own decisions, practice that, what we call autonomy. And I like this quote that this is actually, the book was put out many years ago, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, probably about 10.
By Drs. Cloud and Henry Cloud and John Townsend. And one of the quotes I really like here is, when two people are free to disagree, they are free to love. When we are not free, we live in fear and love dies. So this is something we have to keep in mind, is that freedom, the freedom that we want, to make our decisions, to grow and to also to recognize our responsibilities, what we are responsible to do.
Yeah,
And
we're
take
not
care of.
always thinking the same or feeling the same,
No.
but it's great when we can share what we feel or what we think about certain things, an object, a picture, whatever it is.
Yeah, because as they say, marriage it's two separate lives coming together, right?
Yep.
And becoming one.
One.
Becoming one. And that, sometimes the old joke is, okay, even though it's becoming one, but which one? The question is, which one?
Yeah.
But
And it's not always that blue is blue and red is red.
no.
Sometimes you might have your preferred color blue,
Yeah.
while I have my preferred color green.
Yeah.
That's what our wedding color.
Yeah.
It was not red, it
It
was
wasn't
green.
red or pink, right?
No, it was not pink.
No, you're not a pink person.
No.
And this is the thing, is if we love someone, and growing in love with someone is to cherish who they are for who they are, and not trying to change them into something or someone that they are not, or more like to our liking, kind of thing, And
I just remember when we first moved into our house 30 years ago. And all of a sudden, I guess you said that pink is not my color, but at that time mauve was my color.
Oh yeah.
Everything was mauve. When people came in the house, wow, I like your mauve house. Pink curtains, pink,
Yeah, that's right. You had the
pink
right,
cushions, pinks. Oh my gosh.
even the walls were colored pink.
Yes, in the kitchen they are still slightly
Slightly
pink, just slightly.
Yeah.
No, not pink, mauve.
Yeah, mauve.
Mauve make a big
Yeah.
difference between
Right.
mauve and pink.
Mauve. It's a little more purple.
And you got used to it actually.
Oh,
You
yeah.
never really complained
No.
after you get used to it, and you kind of
Actually,
said,
it was kind of soothing. You know, it's a little bit like what the psych ward at
That's
Queen's
supposed
Hospital.
to be green, right?
Well, no, they have the pink room. They call that.
Oh, now it's pink. Okay, some years ago
So
it was green.
soothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of very soothing.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you know, and even though we may not do the same, like one of the things I could, and I love this example they gave, you know, is you know, that we love even though it's not something that we do or we necessarily are skilled or like, but we love the pleasure that the other person gets out of it. And they were talking about a couple who, you know, she loved to dance. She was a dancer, actually. She was, you know, and even though he couldn't dance, didn't want to try to learn to dance at all, but he loved to watch her dance, you know, and to see the joy she got out of that, you know, and describe, you know, how she talked about that. And, you know, he just got joy out of, you know, experiencing her joy as she did that. See, and that's the same thing. It's cherishing the person and for who they are. See, and if we can start from there, that's where real love starts. You know, and I love, you know, for example, piano. Right? I always joke. You know, you were a piano instructor for 30-something
40 years.
Yeah, you know, almost. Yeah, and you know,
I'm heavily into classical.
Right.
Not into modern music.
Yeah, but
Some
you know,
I got adjusted.
but it doesn't. You know, it's the fact that, you know, you played, and I've always loved to watch you and to hear you play, you know, and especially certain pieces. But heaven forbid I would ever try to take piano lessons from you.
You are one student. I did
don't think
not
so.
accept as piano student. However, I have to say, you came to audition for my musicals and choir.
Oh yeah.
40-some years ago. And I thought, oh, that guy, okay. I don't know whether he can sing or act, since we did musicals then. And I let you audition. And I said, audition this again. I like to hear it again. It's not so much that I wanted to hear her voice. It was just so soothing and relaxing to see you sing with that enthusiasm you had then, that yes, you became my, was it the tenor, the second tenor, or whatever it was.
Right.
I can't even remember what it was, something tenor. Yeah. And I said, yeah, he can be in my musical at that time. And we traveled all over Maui at that time. And
yeah, and that's how, I think.
I said, yeah, I like to hear this voice again and again. Okay, and the rest is history. I still love it again.
Yep.
Yes. And did you know this last week when you had your birthday? That when you came down the stairs, I attempted to play Happy Birthday for you at the piano.
Oh, you attempted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I'm not as good as I was 40 years ago.
I think you started something and then
Oh, I
you went
started
into
something else, and then I thought, oh, there it comes Kent. Okay, let's transition to happy birthday to you. Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I've always, like I say, I've always loved to hear you play and to watch you play, and just to get that joy, you know, share that joy with you. And this is part of understanding the principle behind, you know, the boundaries. But there are very important things that we have to remember within that, and that they said, you know, that we have to recognize and be proactive. And see, it's more about understanding ourselves, understanding what makes us feel safe, secure, you know, and being able to share that with one another, you know, and coming to an understanding of each other in that way, you know, and then learning to, you know, respect that in our spouse, you know, or actually it's really any relationship.
Yeah, it's,
you know,
it's even to kids, you know, when we
Sure.
have kids, you know, and we praise them. Oh, great, good job done, and whatever, you know. Some of us could have done it maybe better, but it's great when you see your daughter or son or grandkids do some
Sure.
stuff.
You know, like our second oldest now, he loves to cook, right?
Yes.
You know, who would have thought, right?
Yes.
And we had so much trouble
He's
with
12 now, 13, 12, 13.
Yeah,
Yeah.
13. You know, understanding him sometimes, you know, because he has some special needs. But
he was one of my great students
That's right.
in piano.
when he wanted to.
When he wanted
when
to.
he was focused.
He was focused. He could be 2 or 3 times as fast learning a piece than an average of my students.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he, you know, and that's, you know, recognizing who he is as an individual. So
Yeah.
this is important too with our children, that we can't try, you know, we want to teach them values, yes. We want, you know, some basic values, some basic morals, some basic principles of life. But we can't force them to become us or try to live, you know, our lives vicariously through them. Then it becomes unhealthy. See?
I'm just thinking about the title of Boundaries. That was the boundaries of Olelo came in. Sorry, not Olelo. the thing. What is it? The COVID. The stuff. The sickness we had. COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the kids couldn't come to piano lesson anymore. He couldn't come to Nana for half a year. Basically, we saw each other only the outside. There was our boundaries.
Well, that was a different. That was an that was a forced.
That was a forced boundary.
Yeah.
And
but you see what happened, and we can see that. Yeah, we can see what that leads to, right? There was so much frustration and people resentment, and you see this is an outfall of when we try to push beyond our own boundaries into and force people to do something they're not, you know, that we have no responsibility doing for them.
Yeah.
You see, you know, trying to push our values. This is when we step over their boundaries, because that's their territory, not ours. See, and this is you know, it, of course, this is a whole different story. I mean, it's a very different situation. But we can take that as a lesson and what it breeds, you know.
It can be for good and it can be for bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and we look at, you know, how does that affect us? How does it affect the relationship?
Yeah.
When we do that, see. So I love the way that they put these, you know, and they create, you know, we can use use these principles, you know, to help us to see how to navigate our relationships, you know. And so, you know, what I like too is that they kind of put it in very, very succinct, very discreet, very kind of clear categories, you know, so we can see some of the principles. You know, they call it the 10 laws of marital boundaries. They wrote. And, you know, the first law is sowing and reaping, you know, that all of our actions have consequences for good or for not so good, you know, positive or negative, you know. And when we do loving, positive things, loving, responsible things, the consequences, people draw closer to us. People feel safe around us. People feel secure being around us. See?
Yeah.
But if we do other, you know, if we do selfish things or irresponsible, if we do, you know, things that are thoughtless, inconsiderate, you know, then the other consequences, the negative consequences, they will withdraw.
Yeah.
So that's a basic, you know, picture, you know, if you will, of this sowing and reaping. And the thing is, we must be careful as a couple, and we see this a lot of times in addictions, in people who have, you know, a history of acting out, where the spouse will become what they call codependent, and they will start to take on the responsibility. In other words, the person acting out, the person with the negative behaviors, doesn't take the consequences. And so they never change. They never mature. But the spouse who is, tries to make up for it, or tries to make, you know, and in other words, taking the responsibility for these negative, you know, these negative behaviors, they take the consequences. They get anxious, they get, you know, fearful, depressed, you know, all of those, the negative things fall on them, the consequences. But again, nothing changes because the one who is actually perpetrating the negative behaviors never takes responsibility. And this is the first law, is part of that is that the partner who is the perpetrator should also be taking the consequences. We have to be responsible for our own actions.
Yeah. And so we have to teach, let's say, the kids or the other people who have a problem, maybe in some areas, to teach them to be responsible.
Right.
And
or, you know, just refuse to take the consequences, you know. If someone is, you know, has a gambling problem, or they don't know how to use a credit cards correctly, and you know, and they, you know, they're not responsible, they're acting irresponsibly, don't bail them out. You know, let them take their consequences. Now, sometimes that's difficult when it affects the whole family.
yes.
But this is where, you know, I think then they need to the spouse who is married to that one who's doing the irresponsible actions then needs to take steps to protect themselves and their
the
family,
others, yeah.
you know, and to not allow those actions, whether it's to cut off from not allowing the other spouse to have a joint account with them, or cutting off the cards, the credit cards, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or separating, withdrawing, from them and isolating, in order to allow that person to bear the brunt of their behaviors.
Yeah.
Law too is responsibility. That couples have a responsibility to set limits on destructive or immature behaviors. So that goes with that law number one. Kind of ties into that, what we just talked about. We limit our the impact of their irresponsible behaviors. We protect ourselves. We protect those we are responsible for, like our children, for example, from that kind of behaviors.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, drinking, gambling, whatever, And the third law is what we talked about, autonomy or power, and I think this is one that is frequently, shall we say, misused or misunderstood. That idea of concept of power. When they talk about the boundaries here, means that we have only the power to change ourselves. We cannot change our partner. We should try to change them in the sense that we try to force them to become. And it's interesting the way that Drs. Townsend and Cloud talk about this. They say whenever a spouse will come up to them and say, "Can you make my husband or my wife change in this way?"
Yeah.
And right there they say, this is already a misunderstanding and a misuse of that principle.
Yes.
You can't.
We can't change
them.
our spouse.
Right.
We can talk with each other, we can share with each other, and maybe ask them little steps towards the bigger step, that they would maybe do certain things. And that they would get excited that they could do certain things which we didn't even think we could do.
Yeah, influence.
Yeah,
we can influence them,
influence a person.
and which is already a type of power that we're. But in essence, we have to, enforce for ourselves our boundaries. Okay, if you're not going to change, or if you can't change, or if you don't see the value of changing and working on this situation, then we're going to have to withdraw.
Consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to face the consequences of that.
And sometimes we have to do it ourselves, like I just experienced recently. My eyes are no more very good. And I finally had to come to the realization that it is better I stay away from driving and let you drive
Mm-hmm.
rather than being on the news. Old lady drove a car even though she didn't see the pedestrian crossing the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It was very difficult.
Yeah.
But I think the way you encouraged me started years ago when I couldn't sometimes distinguish in the evening too much,
Mm-hmm.
and I could realize I cannot drive after sunset or before sunset already.
Mhm.
I had to learn it,
Mhm.
and you encouraged me. Thank you that you didn't force yourself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no, I'm
No, it's
not on the
good.
street. Don't
No.
worry. I have not been the street for years.
He hasn't
For
driven.
years.
You've been on the street, but not behind the wheel.
No. No.
Yeah. Okay. The law number 4 is we have to respect each other's boundaries, and again, freedom, giving each other freedom. You know.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And then love should be the motivation is law number 5. The law of motivation. Love should be our motivation.
Yes.
You know, really seeking the best for the person and for the relationship.
For the, yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
law number 6 is evaluation. We have to, Lord, look at what is really more important, short term, or really looking at what is really long term and lasting. You know, and
Yeah.
proactivity,
Terrific.
envy, activity, being proactive, in other words, and exposure, being the one to take initiative.
Yes.
So God bless you, and I hope that if you have any questions, please do give us a call at 808-772-3418.
God bless you. Aloha.